Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you all to the Mining Needs You Virtual Career Fair's opening webinar on the mining industry lifecycle and labor market. I'm William Meyer. I'm the Director of Communications at the Mining Industry Human Resources Council, otherwise known as MiHR. It's my pleasure to be moderating this session, and I would like to begin today's session by acknowledging that while we're meeting in this virtual platform from places across the country, I'm speaking to you from Ottawa, Ontario, which is traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. So I'm grateful to have the opportunity to be here with you today. And with me are three industry experts. It's fitting that we have a representative from MiHR, the Canadian Institute of Mining, Metallurgy and Petroleum, or CIM, and the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada, or PDAC, as our three organizations are co-hosting this virtual career fair. First up today will be Jamie Wolcott. Jamie is MiHR's Director of Labor Market Information. He's responsible for the continuous development of MiHR's labor market research and forecasting for Canada's mining industry. He's collaborated with numerous industry stakeholders across the country and has been a key contributor to several of MiHR's research projects. His focus is to identify and understand the primary challenges and opportunities facing Canada's mining labor market. So welcome, Jamie. Thanks for being here. Our second speaker is CIM's Chief Executive Officer, Angela Hamlyn. A strong proponent of the power of people and partnerships, Angela is an ardent advocate of cross-functional and multidisciplinary collaboration as a means to advance innovation. She holds an undergraduate degree in political science and English literature from Memorial University and a master's degree in public administration from Carleton University. She has worked for both the federal and Ontario provincial governments, bringing strong public policy, governance, and organizational development expertise. She went on to build a career in journalism and communications prior to joining CIM, where she previously headed up their communications, publications, and IT teams. In addition to sitting on a variety of committees within CIM, Angela sits on the board of directors of Quorum, as well as the Global Mineral Professional Alliance. So thank you as well for joining us today, Angela. And our third speaker is Rees. Karen is a member of the PDAC Board of Directors. She is the second vice president and a member of the executive committee, chair of the governance and nominating committee, chair of the human resource development committee, and co-chair and presenter of the PDAC Student Mineral Exploration Workshop. Karen holds a Bachelor of Science Honors Geology degree from the University of Saskatchewan. She's a member of Professional Geoscientists Ontario and has enjoyed a geoscience career spanning 34 years in Canada's mineral exploration industry. Karen also serves on the boards of three junior exploration companies with mineral properties in Ontario, Quebec, and Manitoba. So Karen as well, thank you for taking the time to be here and be part of this webinar today. So as you can see, we have an accomplished group of individuals with us here today. Before we begin, I'd just like to say all attendees, please feel free to write questions in the Q&A chat box. We're going to be taking questions after the presentations. I'll be back after the three speakers are finished to take those questions at the end of all the presentations. If we happen to run out of time before the end of the session, you can feel free to follow up with info@mihr.ca with any other questions you might have. That's info@mihr.ca. And with that, I will get it started by passing it over to Jamie to start his presentation.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, just let me get my notes up. Okay, hi. So thank you for joining us. My name is Jamie Wolcott again. I'm the Chief Labor Economist and Director of MiHR's LMI program. So my objective today is to take a pulse of Canada's mining industry. We'll be looking at some of the latest trends, and I want to highlight some of the familiar challenges that we're seeing in the industry today. So this presentation is about the mining labor market. So we'll be showing a few of our favorite labor market indicators, employment, unemployment, etc. So it is my hope that this presentation provides some insight or at least sparks some interesting conversation about Canada's mining sector. But first, just a little about MiHR. MiHR is a non-for-profit organization that leads in collaboration across Canada's mining industry. And among its objectives include understanding labor market trends, identifying opportunities, and developing human resources solutions. So MiHR has a 15-person board of directors, which includes mining employers, associations, organized labor, and post-secondary institutions. MiHR has 4 strategic pillars, but for the focus for today, I want to focus on the labor market information, or LMI pillar. So our goal is to bring data and information to people in the industry so that they can make informed decisions and better navigate the mining labor market. So that's a little bit about MiHR. So I have organized my presentation into 3 main ideas, and the first is what we are observing out of that is emerging out of the COVID-19 aftermath, and that is that mining is booming in 2021. And I have a few slides that will speak to this idea. It's certainly not difficult to find some positive news on mining these days, and I've shared a few headlines here. It has also been a while since we've heard a lot about the commodity super cycle. But in 2021, this buzzword has made a certain comeback. So for those of you who don't know, a super cycle describes a period of robust and sustained growth that goes beyond a sort of normal cycle of growth. So think of it as an extended growth period. So there's still debate on whether we are actually in a super cycle, but it really does speak to the sentiment of commodities and mined commodities in 2021. So what evidence do we have that mining is booming in 2021? Well, let's first look at output and GDP. So here is a view of GDP for 2 mining subsectors. So we have mining and quarrying in orange there, and we have mining support services in gray. And we can clearly see the impact of COVID in this picture. So the bottom was set in around April and May of 2020. But since that period, both of these sectors have been aggressively rebounding, and mining support services has more than doubled, and mining and quarrying is up around 57%. So that's mining GDP. So what about exploration spending? So we see that exploration activity has also ramped up. Although I should mention this picture is going to show spending intentions in 2021. And much of this growth is going to be in precious metals. So that is both mining output and exploration spending, both on the rise. And this activity can be attributed to the price of minerals and metals. And this leads me to my next chart. So if you are in the industry, you're very likely familiar with commodity prices. This is a price index, so it reflects a basket of minerals and metals that are mined. And since our brief low in 2020 there, this price index has increased tremendously. And that's going to be due to various factors, such as increased demand from the COVID economic recovery, and also some supply chain issues that have also emerged in the global economy. So this, again, this furthers our case that mining has been definitely growing and booming in 2021. So how does all of this translate to the mining labor market? So this is where things get a little interesting, because on the surface, employment in the mining sector has been rather uneventful, at least not yet anyway. So here we have employment in mining and quarrying over the last 2 years. And this does not show any expansion since COVID, and the trend is fairly flat and boring. So what is going on here? I want to present a couple of possible explanations. And the first explanation leads me to my next main idea of this presentation. And that is mining is undergoing a skills transition. So in this picture, we can see a shift in educational attainment. So this is comparing different labor inputs by education in the mining sector. Labor input is typically measured by hours of work. So over the last 2 decades, we can see hours of work from people with a post-secondary education have grown about 3 times, whereas those with a primary or secondary education has remained mostly the same. So this picture is pointing to a shifting workplace skills in the sector. Likely one explanation for this is that mining production has also changed. So I'm talking about right now the mix of capital and labor being used. And here we can see that industry has become definitely more capital intensive over the last 2 decades. meaning there is more capital in the form of machinery and equipment for every hour of work performed. So this would suggest that mining technologies are becoming more advanced and that labor productivity is going up. And it may also be one explanation as to why employment has remained relatively flat, because the industry is relying on capital and labor productivity and increased skill levels to sort of step in and account for new growth. So more than ever, we're hearing about new mining technologies and innovations being introduced into the sector. So, for example, we have remote operations, automated trucks, the use of connectivity, AI, big data, and drone technology, and that's just to name a few. So it would be very interesting to see how this trend will continue to unfold in the future, and it's definitely something that we're tracking at MiHR. So we also consider certain occupations are more vulnerable to technological disruption. So last year, we developed a scoring index to evaluate how incoming innovation may impact different types of mining occupations. So this vulnerability score is on the vertical axis. So the more vulnerable occupations are going to be higher on the graph. And on the horizontal axis, you see the size of the mining workforce in that occupation. So as we move up and to the right, we say that there is higher exposure for the mining workforce, and these are the areas of concern. So this graph is just a reminder that new technologies will take certain jobs away, and at the same time, they will create new opportunities. So in this picture, I'm looking at jobs in professional sciences, for example. These are the jobs that are expected to be more resilient to these emerging trends and changes. So how can people in the industry be better prepared for the future in mining? So we have started to look at workplace skills, and we are particularly interested in those resilient skills that will be relevant in the future. So this chart shows the most frequently cited skills in online job postings in the mining industry, and that's over a 5-year period. It's dated a couple of years, but it's 5 years from 2013 to 2018. We chose to focus on baseline skills since this is for the whole sector. So specialized skills aren't shown here, but we can see highlighted in this picture that communication skills are by far the most requested baseline skill. Other notable skills include problem solving, planning, and troubleshooting. And I point to those particular ones because it echoes a forecast that we did last year where we projected which skills will be more used as the result of emerging technologies. And so here we see, and this is just a snapshot of that forecast, but here we see critical thinking, judgment, and decision-making, and complex problem solving. These are going to be among the winners in terms of skills that will be more frequently used with new innovations being implemented in the mining sector. So now I've covered 2 ideas. The first was mining is booming in 2021. The second is that mining is undergoing a skills transition. And this leads me to my third and last idea, and that is that the mining sector has a tight labor market. So in other words, labor is often difficult to find, and it seems that currently anyway, we are in a job seekers market. So a tight labor market is going to limit an industry's ability to rapidly expand their workforce. And if it's a perpetual problem, it may even incentivize employers to seek out alternative solutions such as adopting more fly-in, fly-out schedules, and as we've already discussed, substituting to more capital and technology. I want to show a few slides that support this idea that mining has a tight labor market. The first is the unemployment rate. So this is an important indicator of labor tightness, since it measures the percentage of the labor force that isn't working but looking for a job. So when this is low, it is a sign that the labor market is relatively tight. So in this picture, we see that the unemployment rate in the mining sector is consistently low compared to all industries. So that's in blue. All industries is in blue here. And in the mining sector, the unemployment rate has trended down to roughly 2%. in October of 2021. So that's a very tight picture. By comparison, in all industries, it's at roughly 7%. So we can also see that the job vacancy rate has spiked since the beginning of the COVID era. This means that this means that there are more job openings that are not being filled. And as we have, I've been recently talking with people in industry and mining employers, and we are beginning to hear more and more about labor shortages in mining. And that word shortages is now really making a comeback, at least in 2021. I do want to also caution, though, that this industry is very cyclical after all. And I do remember back in, say, 2016, when shortages were not a key topic of discussion. Fast forward to 2021, they are top of mind for many people in the industry. So to close out this presentation, I want to show a couple of other trends that also point to a tight labor market. And so these are going to be factors that basically undermine the sector's labor supply. In other words, they make the tightness situation a lot worse than it needs to be. I could fill a whole presentation for this, but for today, I chose two pictures. The first is enrollment in engineering programs. The three most mining-centric programs are mining, metallurgical, and geological. These are also the ones with the lowest enrollment share. So that's shown on the left, and focus on the bottom three enrollment trends. And their enrollment has been falling. So I isolated those three and changed the scale so you could see the trend on the right chart on this slide. And overall, there is definitely more work to do for making mining a competitive option for students. And the second factor, and this is my last slide, is to discuss diversity. So this factor would definitely solve a lot of problems with labor market tightness, and improving diversity in mining labor force would be definitely be important for that cause. So the mining industry has historically underperformed attracting certain diverse groups. This slide highlights the representation of women in mining relevant occupations. So among the 120 occupations that we track, women make up about 34%, and that's across all industries. And in the mining sector, they only make up about 12%. So there's definitely a gap there. Not all categories are the same, obviously. So let me point you to trades occupations. So in trades, only 1% of women are in the mining sector, according to this. It's rather significant when we consider that women make up roughly half of the overall labor force. So women in the so mining is definitely missing out on this very large labor pool. And lastly, I will say that this is, not necessarily a mining specific issue. If you look at the trades occupations again, across all industries, women may represent about 2% of these occupations. So it appears to be not just a mining issue, but an issue with these occupations as a whole. Okay, so that concludes my presentation, and I wanted to thank you for listening, and I will just turn it over. And I hope that, my original objective was just to show you some insights and highlights and spark a conversation. And so now I'll turn it over to the next presentation. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thanks, Jamie. That was terrific. Very interesting. Let's see here. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I'm addressing you all today from Montreal, which is located on the unceded Indigenous lands of Kenyan Kahaka territory. Sorry, obviously didn't have enough coffee this morning. It's my pleasure to be here with you today. and to share the virtual stage with my fellow panelists here from our partner organizations, and welcome to all the attendees, including the organizations participating with booths at this virtual job fair today. As you've just heard from Jamie, there's plenty of demand for talent in the minerals industry, and that's expected to even get worse. I was just thinking while he was giving his presentation, I started at CIM 14 years ago as the editor-in-chief of CIM magazine, and one of the first issues we put out was on the HR crisis. And the looming HR crisis, well, I guess it certainly definitely is here. And you know, it means that there are quite a few jobs available in the industry, but also finding that job that's right for you is really important. So I've had the opportunity to interview and converse with a lot of people over the years in the industry, and I thought maybe I'd share some what I call my 5 tips for getting ahead in the industry. Not really unique to mining, but this industry is so vast that I think who you know and what you know, it becomes especially important. So again, first a little bit about CIM, the Canadian Institute of Mining, Metallurgy and Petroleum. For over 123 years, we've served as a leading technical institute for those involved in the Canadian mining, minerals, metals, and materials communities, both in Canada and abroad. As a trusted voice for the advancement of leading industry best practices through our meetings, our events, professional development, and publications, we provide opportunities for acquiring relevant knowledge, personal and professional development, networking, and giving back to our communities. Here's CIM at a glance. Together with our 10 technical societies, 30 local branches, 10 student chapters, 12 expert committees, over 10,000 individual members, 185 corporate members, and of course, hundreds of dedicated volunteers. We seek to collectively collaborate to advance a sustainable future for our minerals industry. CIM national members have the opportunity to join more of our 11 societies, which covers the full range of the industry life cycle. And of course, for students and young professionals joining us today, we have a pretty wide variety of benefits to help you gain valuable knowledge and navigate your career options and make connections in an industry that, let's face it, when somebody asked you what you wanted to do when you were little and wanted to ask what you wanted to be when you grew up, it's probably not likely to be a miner. One thing I've come to realize is that very few people who study and work in our industry set out to do so. The industry is filled with accidental tourists, I call them. Practically every scholarship recipient I've ever interviewed says how they fell into mining. In a recent interview, actually, in Mining Engineering magazine, a study from the University of Arizona showed that it wasn't that first-year engineering students thought that the mining industry was dirty or unsafe or low-tech that prevented them from studying going into the discipline. It was actually they didn't even know much about the industry at all. So I was thinking about that when Jamie was giving his presentation, and I know there's a movement now to try to educate mining engineering students, and of course all people in all different disciplines about the industry, because again, it's just not on our radar. I certainly count myself among the accidental tourists in the industry. Before joining CIM, as Will had mentioned, I worked for the federal and Ontario governments, and then in journalism communication. And not long after I joined CIM as the editor-in-chief 14 years ago, I was at a dinner party. And I told a group of friends, yeah, I just started a job with the Canadian Institute of Mining. And a friend of mine said, the Canadian Institute of Miming? So I thought it was pretty interesting that an Institute of Miming seemed to make more sense than mining for me. Again, just kind of showing how off the radar it is, I think, for most people, and certainly not to put down any mimers out there. all good people, but I'm certainly glad I stumbled into this terrific industry, which has offered me, amazing opportunities. And whereas one probably thinks of this typical image of a miner or somebody who works within the minerals industry, today's professional is likely to look like this or this, or those lucky enough to be out in the field like this. So even though we may not have grown up with dreams of working in the minerals industry, given that you're here at this job fair, you obviously are interested in either getting into the industry or advancing your career. So again, I thought I'd share a few tips that I've gleaned from people who've had a lot more experience than me over the years. The first is get informed. There's an old adage, knowledge is power. There's such a vast array of jobs within this industry. You'd be really hard pressed not to find something that would match your aptitudes, your career objectives, even if it's a desire to travel, desire to be outside. Seek out the opportunities and learn more about different areas of the industry. The websites of the participating participants on this panel is certainly a good place to start. For example, Meyer's career development section and PDAC's student and early career resources, and of course the CIM website and library, which gives you access to resources, including the latest news and development in the industry. The second would be get connected. It's been a little bit more challenging over the past year and a half. However, connecting with people in different walks, such as this virtual job fair, offer really valuable opportunities to expand your sphere of influence. And although the industry is really vast, it always continues to amaze me how the 6 degrees of separation are at play in this industry. Somebody you meet at an event one day could be your colleague or your boss, the next. Again, over the next couple of days, you have amazing opportunities to connect with employers and recruiters and other sector representatives, all under one convenient virtual roof. So be sure to make the most of it. The next tip is to get involved. Many organizations offer very rich opportunities to get involved as a volunteer. I'm speaking in particular about volunteerism. Thing about volunteerism is that it largely breaks down traditional hierarchies. So, it's not rare that you have a CFO, a drill operator, a business development professional, an HR person. They can all be working together on a committee or an executive on a project. And again, these interactions really pay dividends far into the future of your career. And plus, volunteering and giving back just feels really good at the same time. Next, seek advice, particularly from those who have more experience than you. So find an advisor or a mentor. They can really help you achieve your goals, identify skill and knowledge gaps. I think that's particularly helpful. We all have blind spots. Help you grow your network, improve your goal setting, which is really important. And of course, provide the opportunity to learn from their experience. Studies show that good mentoring can lead to greater career success, including increased opportunities, promotions, and raises. And in fact, it's so beneficial that reportedly over 70% of the Fortune 500 companies offer mentoring programs to their employees. Again, you can seek out an individual working in the field that you're interested in, and many organizations, including CIM and PDAC, do offer mentorship programs, so be sure to check them out. And finally, and I guess probably a little obviously, is get experience. Everybody wants that. It might seem obvious, but in particular, what I hear in terms of advice from a lot of folks is the importance of so-called boots on the ground experience. You may, especially as a student or out of school, you may not be able to find the perfect job right away. However, whenever possible, get some experience at the operational level. It's in the field, at the face, at the site. Really understanding the operational essentials with hands-on experience really can provide you a career advantage. So again, try not to close out your options because you never know where it's going to lead you. There's so many paths to a rewarding career. So again, get informed, get connected, get involved, get some advice, and get some practical experience when possible. And on that note, be sure to visit the CIM booth here at the Career Fair, where you can chat with our team about how maybe they can help you achieve some of these objectives that I've spoken about today. And of course, we invite you to visit CIM BC 22, our annual conference and trade show that's coming up in Vancouver, May 1st to 4th in Vancouver. And it'll be held as an in-person event, which we're very excited about, to be sure. And thank you all for your interest in a career in this terrific industry, which not only offers great opportunities, but of which I think we can all be tremendously proud. Thanks so much. And now I will hand it over to Karen from PDAC.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Will, for your introduction earlier. And before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that I'm on the traditional lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and also acknowledge the traditional lands of Indigenous peoples wherever you, our attendees, are today. Thanks also to Jamie and Angela for your presentations on the mining side of our business, something that I'm very interested in myself and have had little exposure to. As noted, I am here on behalf of PDAC. I'm a geologist by education, but have been very fortunate to participate in many aspects of the mineral exploration industry. Examples are from my geoscience journey, and I hope you will discover a few nuggets that can be applied to your own career journey. I'd like to start with a quick overview of the PDAC. We are the national voice of Canada's mineral exploration and development industry, with over 4,000 individual and corporate members from around the world. Many of you are likely familiar with the PDAC convention held each year in early March in Toronto. Next year, the convention celebrates its 90th anniversary, and it will feature both an in-person and an online component. We are very much looking forward to seeing many of our industry friends in person. What people may be less familiar with is the work that we do the other 361 days of the year, advocating for a competitive and responsible Canadian exploration industry, both at home and abroad. We have a board of directors that numbers 24. We have a strong team of staff and volunteers who monitor the risks and opportunities facing the industry.
Should I be looking?
Guide how PDAC can help industry respond to challenges. The PDAC has outlined a number of priority areas to focus our efforts. These include access to capital, land, and skills, Indigenous affairs, the mineral industry abroad, and responsible exploration wherever we are working. For this slide, I reference a publication by AIM BC on the mineral exploration life cycle. Mineral exploration can be complex and has many stages. Most exploration projects do not make it through all the stages of the cycle, meaning they don't become mines. Land is very important. Available land resources and access to land. Mineral exploration is a temporary use of the land. A large land area is required to find rare, valuable, and hidden minerals. Mineral projects can be located on both public and private lands, and access is highly regulated by governments at many levels. Prospecting and geoscientists explore large areas of land, identifying and mapping locations, taking samples of rocks, soils, water, and sometimes vegetation to be analyzed for indicators that could lead to the discovery of a deposit. Programs may involve airborne surveys to detect large-scale structures and lithological domains. Modern mineral exploration includes developing relationships and keeping local communities aware of exploration activities. At the stage of intermediate exploration, the work may involve trenching and drilling to explore beneath the surface. These activities are more costly, and as in other earlier stages of exploration, companies that do not generate revenue usually sell shares to raise money to explore and develop projects. Larger companies can use revenue from existing operations to fund their programs to explore for new and mineable deposits for their own production pipeline. Companies proposing mineral exploration programs engage many different groups, including Indigenous peoples, local and regional communities, and governments. If a prospect looks positive, it may go on to have advanced exploration programs that may include definition drilling programs, bulk sampling, environmental studies, and project development design. As the exploration has progressed through these stages, the area of land may become smaller, more focused on a potential deposit area. The stage of mineral development has a particular focus on mine planning and formal plans for construction, operation, and closure. Mine design addresses how surrounding ecosystems will be protected during and after the development stage. Permitting requirements are also part of planning, as they will affect mine design, cost of development, and site rehabilitation. In consultation with Indigenous people, community stakeholders, and governments, potential benefits are outlined. Agreements are developed, and these may be part of the final approval process. Construction proceeds only after government approval and can take several years to complete, depending on the scope and location of the project. Mineral exploration continues during this phase and through production until the deposit is mined out. Today's regulations ensure that all exploration sites will be returned as near as possible to or better than their previous conditions. Caring for the environment and restoring land is an ongoing process throughout the mineral exploration life cycle. So what is geology and geoscience? In geoscience, we are perpetual students as we begin university or college and as we progress through our careers. The traditional broad areas of geoscience include geology, geophysics, geochemistry, and environmental science. Other areas of practice are more specialized, such as volcanology, paleontology, geochronology, mineralogy. There are emerging disciplines such as medical or forensic geology and machine learning as applicable to earth sciences and targeting prospective areas. And we need geoscientists because if it can't be grown or recycled, it has to be mined. From everyday life and all of its necessities to catastrophic disasters, educating the public, exploration, mining. Geoscience is real-world science and critical to us all. There is an overwhelming array of occupations that one can hold as a geoscientist. And a full spectrum of career opportunities exists in the various sectors of the mineral exploration and mining industry. For example, geoscientists can work as a self-employed prospector, consultant, or with a consulting firm. In corporations in the extractive resources sector, mineral exploration and mining, oil, gas, and other energy exploration, development and production, earth materials, water, and geothermal resources. As scientists in geological surveys, government departments, other public bodies and agencies, community stakeholder groups. As faculty at university and college, training geoscientists and undertaking and supervising scientific research. As researchers, advisors, and analysts at banks, investment firms, securities traders. As technical writers and editors, columnists and advisors for the press and other media. My career path is a series of stepping stones and an example of adapting to a cyclical and dynamic industry. Today's mineral exploration industry is very robust and is crying out for workers. You heard about this earlier during this presentation. The tight labor market for the mining industry. Today, the same thing exists in exploration. However, that has not always been the case. And given the cyclicity of the industry, it may happen again. Commodity prices are volatile, and there are ups and downs in the ability of companies to finance. This latter aspect is in direct proportion to the number of exploration jobs that are available. I graduated in 1984 with a degree in geology. In 1987, I got my first job in the exploration industry. Over 2 contract positions spanning 4 years, I gained field school skills and ran multi-rig drill programs in remote areas. In 1992, another downturn and I was unemployed again. I took a job with a consulting firm that specialized in engagement programs for stakeholder input on municipal and utility infrastructure projects. This experience added valuable communication and managerial skills, which served me well in later years. In 1996, I rejoined the exploration industry and for most of the time was with 2 junior companies where I had a variety of responsibilities from exploration to the corporate side of the business. In 2002, I completed the requirements for registration with Professional Geoscientists Ontario. Another event occurred in 2015 when the junior I was with was acquired by a gold producer. This was my first experience assisting with an acquisition, albeit from the target side. In 2016, that company was acquired by a larger company. In 2019, there was another takeover. In addition to learning about business and challenges of mining operations, I gained much more experience with mergers and acquisitions. Following the consolidations, I took on consulting work on a part-time basis, and I was also asked to join the boards of 3 junior exploration companies. My work experience has been enhanced through my volunteer work with the PDAC, beginning 10 years ago on the Human Resource Development Committee, the Student Industry Mineral Exploration Workshop, and in 2018 as a director on the PDAC board. All of the stepping stones, be they in our chosen industry or not, shape our professional life. And here's a few shots of this geologist's experiences. One day, a career launches from a trench in Red Lake. The next day, running a drill program in northeastern Manitoba, flying around in a helicopter in northwestern Ontario, conducting site tours with Indigenous communities in northeastern Ontario, and then all of a sudden giving a presentation to high net worth investors in Liechtenstein. On top of the work experiences, I have been thrilled to participate as a volunteer with my colleagues at PDAC to deliver programs to develop the future leaders of the industry. I appreciate your time and attention. Good luck with your experience at the virtual career fair and throughout your career journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Angela and Jamie. You can both get back on screen. That'd be fantastic. So thanks to the three of you for your thoughtful presentations. That was a lot of information jam-packed into a short webinar. So very much appreciated that you've taken the time to be here with us today. We did get a few questions from the audience. So without further ado, I will ask first question. Karen, since you were just finished speaking, I'll throw this one your way. Directed at you, it says, with a career spanning more than 3 decades, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned while working in mineral exploration?
Thank you for the question. And I guess actually a lot of what I would say here is things that Angela touched on in her presentation. Whether you're in mining or exploration, or probably actually any business, my #1 adage is flexibility is the key to success. We must persevere and be adaptable and agile to be responsive to changing circumstances. I'd also say to treat every experience as a learning experience and every person you meet as someone to learn from. Push yourself beyond your comfort zone and aim to assume more responsibility and accountability. Be respectful of everyone you meet. This industry, while global in scale, is actually a very small world. And very importantly, take the opportunity to volunteer with an organization. Not only will it help others, it will expand your network and horizons and make you a better person. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie, I think I'll put this one in your direction because you were talking about labor shortages. I know Angela spoke about, years ago with labor shortages and now that it's here. So now that we're in this period with labor shortages, tight labor market, do you anticipate that this is going to be continuing into the future?
Thanks, Will. That's a good question. So long term, we will need minerals and metals. So we anticipate the mining sector will continue to grow over time, and that's a longer term picture. Labor shortages, on the other hand, are typically related to cycles, and we've heard a lot about cycles. And so that's usually when the industry can't accommodate a period of growth, such as the period that we're in right now. So we had a rapid growth, and the industry is on its back foot, and it can't seem to catch up. So that leads to a shortage. It's kind of hard to tell whether where we are so I said it's driven by cycle activity. It's kind of hard to tell where we are in the cycle right now, as it usually is. But right now we are definitely growing, but like how long that will continue is still unknown. So the current, and I would just also say the current activity is definitely related to an unprecedented event, that being COVID. So we are definitely, again, in a rather uncertain period. I think the biggest takeaway though from the shortage idea is to think about how to foster the right skills. And I mentioned in my presentation, resilient skills, and that means resilient to business cycles and cycle activity, and being proactive in managing that cycle. So the short answer is it's uncertain, but but definitely the mining industry in the long term is going to be growing. So.
Okay, thanks for that, Jamie. Next up, I have a question directed to Angela. It says, as a female, should I be looking for a female mentor?
That's a good question. I've had both female and male mentors, and I've had female and male mentees. And you know, I think one gleans different things from different folks. I think really it has to do more with the fit, where you want to take your career, you know, your level of comfort and trust with this person. You know, that said, you know, I do believe that even if it's not a mentor, you know, I think getting some advice from other females or underrepresented groups in the industry is never a bad thing, because I think there are some particular challenges and to learn from those experiences. But no, I think that you know, some of the most influential mentors in my life, I believe, have been male. You know, and here again, you know, I think having diverse types of input is always good. So I think you know, we think of the mentor relationship, and there are some formal programs like that, but you know, it can be as easy as, you know, sitting down for a half an hour sometime with an industry professional that you respect. I can't emphasize enough how much those conversations can you know, can make a difference. But and let's face it, it might be hard to find women in particular areas. So you know, we're getting better, as we saw, but you know, I think the skill set and especially the fit are probably the most important.
Thank you very much. And yeah, exactly, as Jamie was mentioning in his presentation about the large pool of expertise and labor that we're missing out on by not having more females in the profession. I have a question that I'm going to, I think, just throw it to the three of you to see if anyone has a response for it. I am currently in an undergraduate geoscience program. I'm wondering if a general geology bachelor degree can be used in the mining industry, or if a master's or engineering specific degree is required. I've currently only worked in exploration.
Could I comment on this, please, Will?
You do.
So being a geologist, and actually this is where being involved with an exploration company that was taken over by a producer, I actually got a better insight into operations, and, you know, previously thinking it's all about engineering, but the geologists are there for a reason. They are there to help find pipeline deposits or things that build into the mine. But they are also, and I'm going to quote Brian Buss on this, who is a mining engineer, but he calls the geologist the conscience of the mine. So the geologists, they're the ones who study where the resource, where the mineralization is, and that the resource is has integrity. The miners, the mining engineering people, they tell us how to mine that. So there's absolutely a role. I mean, even on the more exploration side, you'll be logging core, you might still be out mapping outcrops, looking for new deposits there. So there's absolutely opportunities for those, for geoscience in mining specifically.
Excellent, thank you. Angela or Jamie, anything to add on that?
No, I would just say that looking at the folks in the booths at the career fair today, it's a great question to ask them.
Good point. Good point. Thanks for that. Okay, moving on. We have a few more minutes, so I'll ask one more. This one is specifically for Jamie. Jamie, with staffing supply being low and inflation going up, have you heard much about the impact on salaries for 2022?
Salaries, okay. Yeah, that's definitely a good question. Absolutely. Inflation is a huge topic in the news these days. Everyone's worried about inflation. And obviously, inflation tends to work its way into salaries and wages eventually. I can't say that I have heard anything or seen anything yet. We do track wage data, but I don't have an answer for that. But definitely, I think if we were to continue down this road, yes, absolutely, we would see inflation creep into wages. I'd also just say a couple things. We already see a wage premium for mining anyway, because of the where mining operates, and it deals with in a thinner labor markets. There's usually more wages for those services than if they were in some other comparable area. So there already is a wage premium in mining that has to do with the mining sector and sort of its characteristics. And so I'll say that. And then the other thing I'll say is the big thing that we want to focus on is sort of, and as I touched on in my presentation, is not just the mining industry as a whole, but where in the mining industry, which jobs will get that sort of that treatment, I guess. Because when you look at, that's the other thing, when you look at these things overall, it kind of washes out a bit. I showed a picture of employment and it didn't really move. And I'm scratching my head right now. Why not? And so part of me is saying we have to look underneath that picture, and we have to look at which jobs are actually really in the crunch and which aren't. So, but thanks for the question. Sorry, I couldn't really answer it completely, but.
Thanks, Jamie, much appreciated. We did have one general question that actually I'll take, because it's just in terms of how to best leverage this event. And my answer to that is go to every single booth in the exhibit halls that are here, look at all the opportunities that are available, direct message the booth reps at every single booth, and do that virtual networking that we've been lacking the in-person networking for so long, but leverage those virtual networking skills when talking to people at the booths, share your resume, etc., and best of luck. So with 1 minute left till the close, I just wanted to thank Angela, Jamie, and Karen once again for providing their insight, taking the time to be with us today. And thank you to the audience for joining us. The event's next webinar is hosted by PDAC. A career in mineral exploration discovery awaits, starts at 2 p.m. Eastern time. We hope to see you there. And again, if you have any other questions, feel free to email us at info@mihr.ca. So thank you again, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.